Welcome everyone. Welcome to Innovation Root Studio. I'm your host Noopur and I'm glad to have Patrick Steyaert with us, who is founder of Okaloa. He's an international speaker and winner of Lean Kanban North America 2015 Brickley Key Award. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for being here with us. So, Patrick, as we are living in the world of change, how do you think that a successful change must start and end, and how Kanban plays a key role in it?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me for speaking in this interview in Innovation Root Studio. So the world is changing, and the world is changing more rapidly. That's a well-known fact. Everybody talks about it. And that means that organizations are looking for business agility more than agile development today. Now, business agility is also different from agile development. It means that we need to talk about agility to a larger audience than we're used to more parts of the organizations, more functions in the organization that we're not used to talking about agility. Talking about HR functions, media and communication functions, executive management. So we need to be able to explain Agile and teach and coach Agile in parts of the organizations that we might not have been teaching and coaching. But it also means that maybe we need to broaden up our idea of what Agile is. Maybe yes, Agile in software development might be, or in IT might be Scrum. But if we're talking about these other parts of the organization, we might need to have a broader tool set, a broader set of methods that we need to employ in order to provide a solution that is suited for also those other parts of the organization. So we cannot stick to a one-size-fits-all solution, so we need to have a broader tool set. So we need more and different methods. But we also need to have ways of teaching Agile that goes beyond the methods. So Kanban has been playing quite a big role in that, in terms of preaching a type of change that allows teams and parts of the organization to develop their own process and to develop their own style of agility that is best suited to them. So yes, I think Kanban can play a very big role, especially when we're talking about business agility.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you have, in fact, spoken in length about delivery Kanban and discovery Kanban, and we have seen you mentioning that they are similar yet different. So what makes you say that?
Yes. So traditionally, the Kanban community and maybe some other of the Agile communities also have been focusing on the delivery side of things. Yeah. Now, if we're talking about business agility, we're talking not just about development, delivery. We're talking about including the customer. We're talking about including the business. We're talking about including the user, the consumer. So we're looking at a much broader part of the value stream. It also means that on the one hand, yes, we do need to think about flow and how value flows through the organization and delivering a continuous flow of value to the customer. But it also means that we need to think about learning in terms of what constitutes value for the customer. Now, it happens to be that, yes, we can devise Kanban systems for creating flow in the delivery, but we can also devise Kanban systems for the learning part. And that's what I've been calling discovery Kanban. So Kanban systems that support the learning process, actually. So the typical discovery Kanban would be a Kanban that you use to collect all kinds of observations do some interpretation of those observations, make decisions around it, decide actions on those observations, and then, so for people that might recognize this, that's the OODA loop. And then for particular types of observations, you might want to formulate a plan, a hypothesis, formulate experiments that you want to conduct to validate a certain hypothesis. And so what you're actually doing is Kanbanizing. Kanbanizing not a delivery process, but you're Kanbanizing a learning process. So that's what I call Discovery Kanban.
So as you've spoken about Discovery Kanban with me, I want to know, is there any memorable incident around implementing Discovery Kanban you want to share with us?
Yes, for sure. One organization, a large organization that I have been working with was very much on the business side. Mm-hmm. On the business side, very much inspired by self-management. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they were very much inspired by holacracy. Mm-hmm. And creating circles of cross-functional teams to manage a certain product or a certain service. Now, if we're talking about self-management and you're creating teams that want to manage a certain product or a certain team or a certain service, you also need to have the decision-making process in that team. Now, they were employing a typical decision process that goes with holacracy, which is called consent decision-making. If you're managing a product, surely you need to have some kind of decision-making process, but you also need to have some kind of learning process. So we started actually implementing Discovery Kanban in order to support these self-managing teams, so that they could make their own learning process explicit, visualize their learnings, and create flow in their learning. This was for me a very, very memorable experience because what started out as an exercise in self-management and in self-managing teams turned out into an exercise of implementing Kanban. But then maybe not a delivery Kanban, but a Discovery Kanban. So it turned out in an exercise of implementing Discovery Kanban.
So I want to understand one thing. When you say most of the Portfolio Kanban systems are shallow, why did you make that notion?
Yes. So a lot of people are talking about portfolio management, either in terms of Portfolio Kanban or in terms of Agile portfolio management. If you look at some of the scaling models, then the portfolio level is an important level. It's an important concept in terms of business agility. And then the advice is maybe to implement a Portfolio Kanban to manage the portfolio level. So it's a crucial concept, but at the same time, every time I hear somebody give a presentation, for example, on Portfolio Kanban or on Agile portfolio management, I deliberately take the effort to go ask, is it more than just visualization? And the answer every time is, nope, it's nothing more than visualization. We're talking about Portfolio Kanban, but in a sense, we're talking about a visualization of the portfolio. Now, at the team level, we're all very aware that Kanban is much more than visualization. It's about managing flow, creating flow at the team level, using WIP limits, measuring the flow. So it's much more than just visualization at the team level. And so if we want to create flow at the portfolio level, then surely we need to do more than just visualization. So at the team level, we talk about the difference between Proto-Kanban and Kanban. Proto-Kanban is we're visualizing, but we're maybe not managing the flow. I think we definitely also need to make that distinction at the portfolio level between proto-portfolio Kanban and then true portfolio Kanban.
So since we are talking about Portfolio Kanban, why don't you share your fresh look about from Upstream to Portfolio Kanban?
So one of the things that I've been hearing at different places is, so at the team level, we create flow by balancing demand and capability. So we want to do the same at the portfolio level. And we do that at the team level by limiting the work in progress. And then the natural reaction is, okay, we need to do the same at the portfolio level. Somehow limit the amount of work in progress, the amount of initiatives in progress. I'm not sure what is actually meant by that, but somehow limit the amount of work in progress. I think that's maybe a little bit naive. At worst, it's naive. At best, it's naive. At worst, it's maybe the wrong guidance. And the reason is the portfolio level is really different from the team level. It's really a different context. Scale is a different context. So we need to address different challenges at the portfolio level. One particular challenge that I've been talking about is fluctuating demand. So at the team level, surely we want to have a stable demand in order to create a stable flow in the delivery of work. So if we're looking upstream, and the upstream does not create a stable flow entering into the team, then surely the team will struggle. It will, at certain points in time, the backlog will become very big, and the team will be pressured. And at certain times, maybe the backlog will become very small, up to the point that the team needs to start inventing its own work. So at the portfolio level, we need to address that challenge of fluctuating demand. So one way of dealing with that fluctuating demand is with a concept that is called in supply chain. It's a concept that is called order points. So the concept of order points is actually quite simple. Rather than waiting until your backlog is empty, you start focusing on filling up your backlog in time. So rather than having a maximum limit, in this case, we'll have sort of a minimum limit. And that minimum limit is a signal, it's a trigger to say we need to not just focus on delivering, but we also need to focus on discovering new work. So fluctuating demand is one challenge that we need to address at the portfolio level. Another challenge is the fact that we might have multiple teams involved in delivering, and not all those teams have the same capabilities. They might involve different competencies that are maybe not overlapping. And so we need to synchronize the work of all those teams. So that's another challenge that needs to be addressed. If we're not careful, we get into the situation where at the team level, all the work in progress is well managed. And if you talk with the different teams, they will say, yeah, our work in progress is all, it's okay. We have a low work in progress. But then at a higher level, at the portfolio level, we start a lot of initiatives because a lot of initiatives get blocked because one team or another team is not available. So we need to a certain extent, we need to manage the capacity in a way that we don't start any work if we're not sure that all of the teams that are involved have the capacity to actually start that work. One concept that I've been using is this notion of cap tokens. Cap tokens represent the capacity of the different teams, So each team has its own type of cap tokens. It represents how many requests that a team can handle at the same time. It's kind of a WIP limit, but at a higher level. At a level of not individual work items, but more on bigger items. And so you can only start a request when you have the appropriate cap tokens of all the teams that need to be involved in that request. And when do you get your cap tokens back? When all the teams have finished the request. So you make the capacity of each team very explicit by physical tokens. And so that allows us to go a couple of steps further, because sometimes you might want to reserve capacity of teams, because you know that a certain important request is upcoming, a critical strategic request is upcoming. So you might want to reserve capacity, because if you don't reserve it, it will be taken up by maybe lower level, lower priority demand. So that means just moving cap tokens upstream. So if they're moved upstream, you cannot use them to start new requests. And we can go even a step further. If you have multiple customers, probably they'll have a conflicting demand. You have multiple customers, you have multiple teams. Now we have kind of a marketplace where multiple customers with multiple demands, maybe conflicting demands, are bidding for these cap tokens. Are bidding for these cap tokens to actually get capacity from these multiple teams. So we're actually creating kind of a marketplace to match demand and capability. And then going even a step further, I think a final challenge at the portfolio level is that in traditional portfolio management, because we're assuming quite a stable world. Maybe it was not true, but the assumption was of a quite a stable world where we could assign monetary value to each initiative, the budget or the business case. So we were able to assign a monetary value to each of the initiatives. So that means that we can make all the different initiatives comparable to each other. Now, in a more volatile world, that might not be possible anymore. So we might come into a situation that we cannot compare one initiative with the other. Maybe we have an initiative that has a high but uncertain value, and then another initiative that has maybe a lower value but more certain. How do you compare those with each other? So we get incommensurable demand. The worst thing that we can do is to try to put a system in place to compare them, because the only thing that we will do is put extra hurdles in the upstream, put more delays in the upstream to try to compare them while they're not actually comparable. So we put more delays, more hurdles in the upstream, which means that in the end we will get more fluctuation in the demand downstream. So that's not a good solution. Yes, we need to recognize that we have pressure. We always have more demand than we have capability than to deliver. It's easier to come up with ideas than to deliver to those ideas. So we have always more demand than we have capacity to deliver. And so we want to do some selection in the upstream, but we need to make sure that selection doesn't come into the way of creating a stable flow for the downstream teams to work on. Now, hospitals are the example that I use that have solved that problem. Okay. Especially if you look at field hospitals, the demand is always higher than the capacity to deliver. Sorry to say, but that's how it is. So we need to protect our downstream capacity. We need to protect the capacity of the doctors so that we can treat the patients that really are in need of treatment. And so the way field hospitals, but also emergency rooms today deal with that is with a system that is called triage. So a triage system is not an elaborate scoring system. It's not that you're going to spend days and days and days on assessing and scoring, because then it might be too late. It's really a system based on experience of the person that actually does the triage. And what it does, it routes the different patients to the different places that they need to be routed to. The typical triage system would classify into a demand, a patient, in this case, a patient that is that might, with the available means, we cannot treat the patient in a way that the patient will survive, or patient where we say if we treat the patient immediately, then we can drastically increase the chances of survival, or a patient where we say that we need to start observing and making a diagnosis of the patient now so that it doesn't escalate later, or patients where we say these are ambulant patients, so they can wait and we'll treat them when it's appropriate for us. So the same type of triage system can be used at the portfolio level in order to triage based on experience, based on intuition, triage demand in a way that we can create an optimal flow for downstream teams to work on. So yes, we can at the portfolio level. It's different types of challenges that we need that we face. But for each of these challenges, there are techniques that can help us to deal with those challenges. So we can really go beyond the proto Kanban.
So Patrick, I want to understand from you that how the teaching and coaching approaches can be adopted as we are talking about changing world. So how can it be adopted?
In the Agile, on the one hand, Agile requires, we talk about practices, we talk about feedback, we talk about collaboration learning. And so, on the one hand, it is important to teach practices, and then hoping that those practices in the end will lead to certain results. On the other hand, agility also requires a certain level of autonomy. It requires a certain level of initiative. It requires a certain level of creativity in the organization. So we do need to be careful that by teaching and coaching, that we don't overteach and overcoach in a way that we take away creativity and initiative and entrepreneurship, that we don't destroy some of that creativity and initiative in the organization. So if we're too directive about how Agile should be, how teams should be Agile, if we're too directive, we might be taking away some of the autonomy and some of the creativity out of the team. Now, to a certain extent, that creates a little bit of a problem, because on the one hand, we do want to teach people what agility is about, and at the same time, we can't be too directive, because if we're too directive, we may be destroying some of the agility of the team. So we've been teaching and coaching to many parts of the organization in a way that for many parts of organizations that have not been exposed to Agile thinking before. And so one of the things that we learned is that we cannot just rationally explain everything, because if we try to rationally explain everything, what Agile is and why you should do Agile, well, people at best might nod their heads and say, "Oh yes, we understand," but the only thing that happens is they understand rationally. It doesn't mean that they understand it emotionally. In the Agile community, we've been talking a lot about mindset. Rationally explaining things doesn't necessarily change the mindset or the judgment or the reasoning of people. So especially in the context of business agility, where on the one hand we need to be able to reach many people in the organization at different levels, and where we need to have creativity and initiative in the organization, we need to form a style of teaching that isn't too directive, is not too rational. And so the way we've coped with it, and we're coping with it today, is by allowing, rather than by taking a very experiential approach, by allowing people to experience what agility is about, to experience flow, to experience collaboration. And then after the experience, we explain, because then there's a sufficient intuitive understanding so that we can rationally explain, and the results are way much better. So it's teaching and coaching in a way that we don't push any practices on the teams, but we allow them to understand so that they can select their own practices that are most appropriate for their situation.
Pathak, you have been part of Lean Kanban India conference from last 2 years, and it's been wonderful having you. During the conference, you might have interacted with a lot of Indian audiences who are implementing Kanban or learning Kanban. So what is your take on the state of Kanban in India?
Okay. So it's been wonderful being here. I really enjoyed coming to the conferences, and especially because I really enjoyed the interaction with all the people that are at the conference. I'm very, very, very hopeful for Kanban in India because of the curiosity of people. I see a type of curiosity that I don't see anywhere else.
Really?
Yeah, indeed. And so, and I think that's the type of mindset that is at the basis of Agile. It's being curious, being investigative, trying to learn, and so I see a lot of that at the conference in the interaction with the people that are at the conference. As I understand that. The conference was fully booked this year, so again, that's a very good sign. For ourselves, I was here last year. For me, that was the starting point of getting to know people, getting to know a little bit how it works here, and then this year I already see an evolution in terms of. I'm really feeling that something is brewing, and that I'll be here more often.
Yeah, sure. You
And so yeah, so I'm very hopeful, and I'm really confident that Kanban will be growing in the Indian market. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pathak. Thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful chatting with you, and we look forward to discuss more such things with you. Thank you so much.
It was a joy talking to you too, and thank you for the interview.